Alright, in this video we're going to take the code that we created in the last video, and we're going to apply some, we're going to first of all add some more content, we're going to add some new markup, and we're going to use CSS to style the website. Alright, so the first thing, well, I'm using Notepad++, and over here we have our files and folders, so I don't have to keep going into Windows Explorer. This is actually a plugin for Notepad++ called Explorer, and if you want to get this, all you need to do is go to Plugins, go to Plugin Manager, and then Show Plugin Manager. And if you scroll down, you should see, actually it's not here because I have it installed, but you should see Explorer. Just check that and then click Install, and you'll be able to use this little file manager. Alright, so let's look at the document structure. There are a few things I want to change here. We're going to leave the header. For navigation, we're going to add links. Alright, so not real links, but just to make it look a little bit more real. We're just going to say to a hashtag, which just goes to the current page we're on. And I'm also going to add a couple more links or menu items. And we're not going to actually be building these pages. This is just for a show. So let's say we have a services page and contact. Alright, so down here we have an article and a sidebar, an A side tag side by side. What I want to do here is I want to first of all wrap them in a main tag. Alright, so right above article, let's put a main tag. And the reason that I'm doing this is because I want to apply padding to the entire main area. Alright, so that'll grab that area for us. Actually, this should be here. Alright, so basically we have the header, then the main area, then the footer. And inside the main area, we're going to have a main content area and a sidebar. Now I'm going to change this. I want to change this to section, or not change, but add section. And let's see, we want to end the section before the sidebar. Alright, so let's just make our indentation. Alright, so we have a section, and inside that there's an article. Alright, now let's give an ID to this section, and I'm just going to call this main. Alright, so section, and inside there's the article, and I'm actually going to get rid of this section and the header. Alright, so our article will go in here. Let's just put an H2 tag in there. Say my headline. Alright, and then we're going to have some content. We're going to have some paragraphs here. And what I'm going to do is just grab some sample content from Lorem Ipsum. Alright, so if you go to this lipsum.com, you can generate as many paragraphs or words or whatever of sample data. So I'm just going to grab 2 paragraphs. And let's go ahead and paste. Okay, we want 2 paragraphs, so we have to end that. And let's do this. Alright, so in our article we have a heading, and then we have a couple paragraphs. So that takes care of that for now. And let's put some content in the sidebar. So the sidebar will give an H3 heading, and this will just say sidebar. And then I want 1 paragraph in there that's not too long. I'll take this. put that in a paragraph tag. Alright, so there's our sidebar. Now we're going to be floating. We're going to float the article to the left and float the sidebar to the right. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we clear that so that the footer displays at the bottom and doesn't float along with those elements. Alright, so we're going to put a div right under the main tag. I'm going to say div class equals clear fix. Now if you're using the HTML5 boilerplate, clear fix I believe is already defined, and it's defined to clear both floats. So I don't think we need to add this in the CSS, but I'm not 100% sure on that, so we'll get to that later. Alright, so the footer, I'm going to put a paragraph, and this is just going to be our copyright text, so we'll say copyright, and then I want to use the copyright symbol, and obviously we don't have those on a UTF-8 character keyboard, so we can use this code with the ampersand and then the word copy and then a semicolon, and that should give that symbol to us. Okay, I'm going to say 2014, and we'll just say my HTML5 website. Alright, so that looks good. I think that's all the markup we need, so let's save that. And obviously this isn't going to look very well because we have no styling. So basically we just have our elements in a linear fashion. Alright, so our navigation, our main section, and sidebar and footer. So now we need to apply some styling. So I'm going to go into my CSS folder and open up main.css, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's already here that I'm just going to leave. This area here, authors custom styles, this is where we're going to add our customization or our style. So the first thing I want to customize is the body. Okay, so the body refers to the entire website. Alright, so in the body I'm going to set my font, so we'll say font family, and I'm going to set that to Arial, and we'll set a font size to 13 pixels, and I want to give it a background. I want to give it a gray background, so we'll use 3-character hexadecimal CCC. That's a light gray. Alright, so that's all we need for the body, so let's save that and make sure that it registers. Alright, so you can see now the body's gray. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is the boilerplate doesn't apply, it doesn't zero out the margin and padding of ULs, of unordered lists. You can see that this has margin on the side here. We want this to have no margin and no padding, so it lines up, you know, with everything else. So to do that, we just want to say UL, which will take all of the unordered lists in the document, and we're just going to say padding 0 and margin 0. Okay, save that, and then if we reload, you can see that it's now aligned to the left. One thing I did forget in the markup is I want to create a div, a container div, because I want this to be in the middle first of all, and I want it to be about 80% wide. Alright, so to do that we want to wrap everything in a container. Alright, from the body, right under the body tag, we're going to create the opening div. We'll say div ID equals container, and then way down right after the ending footer tag, I'm going to close that off, div. Alright, and let's properly align everything here. I'm sorry, indent everything. You want your code to be as readable and user-friendly as possible. If someone else is going to be working with your code, you want to make it easy for them and for yourself. I think there is a a formatting plugin for Notepad++, but I'm not exactly sure, so I'm just going to do it like this. Alright, so body div. So inside the div, main section, A side. Alright, that looks good. Alright. Actually, this needs to be in more. Alright, so that's good enough. Alright, so I'll save that, and what we want to do is grab that container and style it. So it's an ID, so we need to use the hash symbol, and what was it, container. Alright, so we want to give this a width. I'm going to give it a fixed width for now, but ultimately you want your projects to be responsive, and it's better to use percentages for that, but just for now we're just going to say a width of 960 pixels. Alright, so we want it in the middle, so we need to set up a margin, and the margin is going to be 10 pixels on the top and the bottom. Alright, and then auto for the right and the left. Alright, and auto is what's going to give it an equal amount on each side and align it to the middle. Alright, so we also want to say overflow is going to be auto, alright, because everything in the container we want to display, even if it's floated, so that fixes that. And then I'm going to set up a radius, border radius, I'm going to set to 10 pixels. Alright, so let's save that. Alright, so it looks like it's, let me just do this. Alright, so you can see no matter how far we stretch it, it's aligned to the middle. That's good. Alright, oh, I also want to set a background of white for the container. So we'll say background. Okay, I'm using the 3-character hexadecimal, and that's FFF, that's for white. Alright, so you can see it now has a white background with rounded edges. Now we have it all flushed with the left side here. There's no padding, so we need to add that. So I'm going to add the padding to the header first of all. Now we could say the container, we could apply a padding to the entire container, but I don't want the navigation to have any padding on the side. So I want that to go across the whole thing. So what we're going to do is add padding to the header, and then the main tag, which is the sidebar and the main area, and then the footer. Alright, so let's go back to our CSS, and first let's do header, and of course we want the main header. Alright, so basically this is saying we want the div with the ID of main inside the header tag. Alright, and what we want to do is just add some padding. So I'm going to add 10 pixels of padding. And I want the background of the header to be gray, but not as gray as the background here. So I'm going to use let's see, background, and we're going to use this F4, which gives us a light gray. So let's save that. Alright, so now you can see that our padding has been added, and we have a light gray background. Alright, so let's apply padding to the main area, or the main tag. And for this, I'm going to add 20 pixels of padding here. Yeah, that's good. Alright, so let's go ahead and reload. Alright, so now we have our padding there. Now we need the footer. footer, we want padding. Actually, you know what? Yeah, we'll just do 20 pixels, but we want to align the text to the middle. So text align is going to be center. All right, let's check that out. All right, so now you can see that our footer is in the middle. All right, so now I want to work on the navigation. We obviously want this to be, we want these links to float side by side. All right, so we want to float the li tags. So let's put this right under the header, and we'll say nav. Let me just take a look at this. All right, so we'll grab the nav, and let's make that 40 pixels high. So height 40 pixels, and I want the background to be another shade of light gray. So background, okay, AAA, and we want the overflow, I'm going to set it to hidden. All right, so now we need to do the li tags. So nav li, we want these to float. We're going to float them to the left, and we want to add padding on the top. Let's see, we want to add 10 pixels padding on everything except the bottom. All right, so top, right, bottom, left. Okay, so when you use the shorthand for the padding, it's always top, right, bottom, left. All right. Let's see. Let's take a look at that. All right. So we have our background. Our links are floated. Obviously, we want to change these. We want them to be white and no underline. All right. So let's take the links. Nav A, because link A is the link tag, and I'm going to set color to white and text decoration to none, and that will get rid of the underline. And I'm going to make them bold as well. So font weight, bold. All right, so that should do it for the menu. All right, so that looks a lot better. Let's actually give it a hover as well. We'll hover it with black, and we can do that by just saying nav A and then hover. And we'll change that to black. Alright, so now we have our hover effect. Alright, so next we want to make the sidebar an actual sidebar. So what we want to do is float this main content to the left and the sidebar to the right. So let's see. We want our section. We want the main div that's in our section, and we want to set a width. Now I'm going to use percentages here as opposed to a fixed width. So we're going to say that this is going to be 70%, and of course we want to float it to the left. Alright, now we want to take the sidebar, which is the A side tag, and I'm going to set that width to 20%. Okay, I'm going to float to the right. Now you're probably saying, why 70 and 20? Shouldn't it be 30? It's not, because we have padding. All right, we have 20 pixels of padding on each side. So if we made this 30, then it would just overlap and it would be pushed down. All right, so we need to account for the padding. All right, so save, and there's our sidebar. Alright, so this looks pretty good. Just as an example, obviously this isn't a very great looking production site, but just to give you an idea of how we can use these new HTML5 tags. The last thing I want to do is make this responsive. You can see if I shrink the browser, it just overlaps the content. You can't see it. And this is what it would look like on a mobile phone. All right, so our mobile device. So it's easy to change that. The first thing we want to do is have a fluid container. All right, right now we have the container set to 960 pixels. I'm going to set this to 80%. All right, if we save that, reload, and it's a little skinnier. Let's set it to, we'll just set it to 85%. All right, so now if I shrink this, you can see that the content shrinks along with it. Now this would be the mobile version. We don't want this. We want the sidebar and the section to not float. Okay, we want it to take up the whole thing, and the sidebar should go under the section. All right, so we do that with media queries. All right, and you can see there's actually a spot for media queries down here. I'm going to change this from min width to max width, and I'm going to change this to 600 pixels. All right, so 600 pixels wide is probably something like this. All right, so when it hits that point, I want this not to be floated. All right, so all we need to do is throw in some styling in here. The styling we put in here is only going to apply if the window is 600 pixels or less. All right, so let's take actually let me just copy this and put that in here. All right, and we want to set the width of the section to 100%, and we want to set float to none. All right, and we also want to align it to the center. So text align center. All right, and then we're going to pretty much do the same thing for the sidebar. We're going to take away the float and make it 100%. All right, so actually let me just indent this. All right, so let's take a look at that. Reload. Oh, you know what? I noticed something with this boilerplate. If we go down on our HTML page and we go down here, this is causing some issues, not having HTTP in front of this, especially if you're developing locally. So I'm just going to add on HTTP and a colon. All right, and now if we reload, did I save the CSS file? That's odd. Oh, alright, we weren't at 600 pixels. So when we hit 600 pixels, it clears. The sidebar goes away. Well, it doesn't go away, it moves down here. Alright, so that looks a lot better. And that's what this template or this website would look like on a mobile device. Alright, so like I said, this was not even a real project. It's just to give you an idea, just maybe refresh the basics of CSS and working with HTML5 in CSS. So in the next video, we're going to talk about JavaScript.